Hi, I'm John DeVore. Welcome to the DeVore Fidelity YouTube channel. Today's going to be a Monkeyhaus tour, and I want to talk about some of the art that is up on the walls in the office here. And I want to talk about, actually, it's going to be two artists, both of which I've known for a really long time, and both of which are musicians as well. And I think that sort of combination of visual arts and music is pretty common. I could just say for here, in the 20 years that we've had this factory here, we've had more people who were musicians and visual artists than we have had people who weren't. The first one I want to talk about is someone I have known for a really long time. I have known her since the early 80s, 82, 81 or 82 maybe. And she worked at the little convenience store in the town I grew up in. I grew up in Newton, Massachusetts. And she was older than me, and she was super cool. She was going to art school. She was in an awesome rock band, and she worked at the little convenience store. And so I would just hang around there after school and beg for free mixed flavor slushies and sweet tarts and those kinds of things. But it's a friendship that has maintained since then. Her name is Sandra Cohen. It was Sandy Cohen when I knew her in the 80s, but it is now Sandra Cohen. This is a tape of hers from 1991 or 1991. Her band at the time was named Grind. It was three women, power trio, absolutely killer. She called me up and told me that her band was going to be playing in New York City. She was still living in Massachusetts and I was in New York at that time. And so I went and saw her band, and it was awesome. And I bought a tape. Grind Love Psychics. Killer tape. I don't know if any of these are available online or anything like that, but I will definitely post links to everything I talk about that I can down below on this. She still does some music as far as I know, but she does a ton of painting. And I believe she's teaching painting somewhere in Massachusetts. But her home is filled to overflowing with paintings, and they're really cool. She did the cover art for this cassette, but most of her stuff has kind of a collage-y juxtaposition. A great many of them have a female figure in them somewhere, and also a lot of them have some sort of a music theme in them. Except this one, which, while it does have a female figure in it, doesn't have any music unless the sight of that awesome Schwinn Stingray crate is music to your eyes as it is to mine. That is one of the most badass bikes of all time. And the other piece that I have up on the wall in my office is a female head sort of floating over what seems to be almost like an oceanscape with the city skyline in the background. But as I look at it, I actually start to see music waves instead of ocean waves. And that cityscape in the background actually becomes, for me, more of a spectrum analyzer or like a mixer board. And so to me, that really has a direct musical connection as well. The other artist slash musician I want to talk about is someone who I actually played in a couple of bands with back in the 90s. This is one of his groups, the Scholars, which I was lucky enough to play in while it was based in New York City. And the guy's name is Whiting Tennis. And at the time that I was in the band, he would basically travel back and forth between Seattle and New York City. But he has since moved to Seattle, and I think it's a permanent one this time. His music and his art combined tell you an enormous amount about Whiting. He is a really tall guy, taller than me, and I can tell you that there's something about living life as a way taller than average person that you sort of adapt your whole self, your personality, and the way you carry yourself physically. You have to adapt to a world that is not really tall enough for you. And when I was younger, I would go to a crowded party and I couldn't hear anything that anyone's saying because they're all far away from me. And so you end up creating these stances, legs spread really wide, very slouchy, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to bring yourself down to a level so you don't feel like you're going to be perceived as aloof. And so that you can actually engage in conversation in a noisy place. That's just one example of the kinds of adaptations that we subconsciously or consciously affect over the course of being a super tall person. As I said, Whiting's even taller than I am, and I see all those things reflected in him. His music has a really sort of black and white, melancholy feeling to it. It is sparse, stripped down. It's not simple, and his lyrics are quite often poetic. And his art has a little bit of that in it as well. A lot of his drawings and paintings and sculptures, in fact, seem to be like these constructions that are a little bit too tall, not particularly stable, or they tend to be maybe a little awkward seeming. There's a sense of arrested motion, but a long time ago, so that these things have been standing there a very long time and have weathered in some way. A lot of his art has a whimsy as well to it. I know it sounds kind of odd, but they do sort of go hand in hand. I've got two paintings in the office here by him and another drawing at home. The one that I took down from the wall to show here is the first piece that I got from him. And as you can see, it's a buffalo in a field. And it's sort of a lonely and sort of beautiful pastoral scene until you realize that there's kind of a tear in the fabric of reality here. It's almost wonderful and beautiful, and yet there's something really sort of terribly wrong with it. The other piece that I have here in the studio is literally the scrapings off of his palette. He scraped his palette clean and mixed all the old unused paint together, and the colors reminded him of shitty New York City and filthy urban pigeons. And so he did this quick little palette knife study of a pair of pigeons, and I absolutely adore it. Thank you for joining me and watching the video. I'll leave links below to whatever artist or music pages that I can find from my two friends. And thanks a lot. I'll see you at the next video. Bye.
Well, I heard your horror story, and I read your books in my memory. They reminded me of a really bad movie that I saw the night before you left me. Now I know you do not see it this way, quite possibly without the city, for all his sins.